my experience, as someone who has grown hundreds of avocado trees from grocery store pits, this isn't just another gardening project. It's genuinely one of the most magical and rewarding things you can do. Taking something most people toss in the trash and turning it into a beautiful, living tree feels almost like alchemy. The good news? It's far easier than most online tutorials make it seem. Once you understand a few key principles and avoid the common pitfalls, you'll have a healthy young avocado tree much faster than you ever thought possible. I've tested the popular water method and the direct soil method side by side under the same conditions, and the results genuinely surprised me. Stick around until the end, because I'll also share a simple pre-sprouting trick that can speed up germination even more. Let's dive in. So let me start by sharing exactly how to select and prepare your avocado seed for the highest success rate. After growing hundreds of trees, I can tell you that not all seeds are equal. When you cut open your avocado, choose a pit that is plump, firm, and completely free of cracks or soft spots. Avoid any that look shriveled or have dark blemishes. These are often not viable, especially since most grocery store avocados have been refrigerated, which lowers germination rates. The two most common varieties at the store are Hass and Reed. Hass has that classic dark, pebbly skin and a smaller seed, while Reed avocados are larger with smooth green skin and a much bigger pit. In my experience, the larger Reed seeds tend to sprout more vigorously and grow faster in the beginning because they contain more stored energy. That said, both varieties work excellently if prepared correctly. Once you have your chosen seed, clean it thoroughly under warm running water. Gently rub off all the slippery flesh with your fingers. Any leftover fruit residue can quickly lead to mold, which is one of the fastest ways to lose a seed. Here's a crucial step that many beginners skip, but I always recommend. Carefully peel away the thin brown papery skin covering the seed. I know it seems protective, but removing it significantly reduces mold risk and allows the seed to absorb moisture more effectively. Use your fingernail or a soft paper towel under running water. Some seeds peel easily. Others need patience. Do your best to remove as much as possible without damaging the seed itself. Now, here's what I consider the fastest and most reliable method after years of side-by-side testing. Planting directly in soil. While the toothpick water method is popular and fun to watch, my results consistently show that soil-planted seeds outperform water-grown ones by a noticeable margin, both in speed and overall health. Get yourself a pot around 6 inches in diameter with plenty of drainage holes. This is non-negotiable because avocados are extremely sensitive to waterlogged soil and will quickly develop root rot. Fill it with a high-quality, well-draining potting mix. I personally like to blend standard potting soil with a generous handful of perlite to improve aeration and drainage even further. Now, take your clean seed and identify the correct orientation. One end is slightly flatter. That's the bottom where the roots will emerge. The more pointed or rounded end is the top where the stem will grow. Plant the seed with the flat end down, burying only the bottom half to 2/3 of the seed. I usually leave about 1/3 of the seed exposed above the soil line. This technique prevents rot, allows you to monitor progress easily, and gives the seed the perfect balance of moisture and oxygen. After planting, water thoroughly until water drains out the bottom. Then place the pot in a warm location. Avocados are tropical plants, so consistent warmth is the real secret to fast germination. Ideal room temperature is 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 to 24 degrees Celsius. If your home runs cooler, especially in winter, I strongly recommend using a seedling heat mat set to around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. In my tests, seeds on heat mats germinated 2 to 3 weeks faster than those at normal room temperature. That's a game changer. I know many of you love the classic toothpick and water glass method, so let me break it down too. Insert 3 or 4 toothpicks into the middle of the seed at a slight downward angle, spacing them evenly. Avoid the natural seams to prevent splitting. Rest the seed on a glass of water so the bottom half is submerged. Change the water every 2 to 3 days and keep it in a warm spot with indirect light. While the water method is fun and satisfying because you can watch the roots develop in real time, my extensive testing has shown it has one major drawback. Seeds started in water often suffer significant transplant shock when moved to soil. The roots adapted to water struggle to adjust to soil, which has set the plant back weeks or even months. In contrast, seeds planted directly in soil from the beginning develop stronger, more resilient root systems, and grow noticeably faster overall. Let me walk you through what to expect month by month so you can track your progress with. Confidence. In the first month, don't panic if nothing appears above the soil. This is completely normal. Underground, the seed is absorbing moisture, swelling, and sending out its primary taproot. Keep the soil consistently moist, but never soggy. I'll water when the top inch feels dry. By month 2, you should see a crack forming at the top of the seed. This is an exciting moment. The crack widens, and soon a thick reddish or greenish stem pushes upward. Provide bright indirect light. A south-facing window is ideal, but protect it from harsh direct sun that can scorch young growth. Month 3 brings real progress. The stem reaches several inches tall, and the first leaves unfurl, often starting with a beautiful reddish bronze color before turning deep green. This is when photosynthesis kicks in strongly. I begin feeding with a balanced liquid fertilizer diluted to half strength every 2 weeks. Months 4 and 5 are when your avocado really takes off. New leaves appear regularly, the stem thickens and becomes woodier, and a healthy soil-grown seedling can easily reach 12 to 18 inches tall with multiple leaf sets. Water-grown plants, however, often only hit 8 to 10 inches in the same period due to that transplant shock. If you started in water and need a transplant, do it carefully. Wait until you have several inches of roots, but before too many leaves develop. Place it in moist potting mix at the same depth with half the seed exposed. Keep the soil extra moist for the first 2 weeks. Then gradually let the top inch dry out to help the roots adapt. Now let's talk about some common problems you might encounter and how to solve them, based on my years of hands-on experience growing avocado trees. First, if your seed sits for more than 8 to 10 weeks with no cracking or sprouting, it's likely not viable. Grocery store avocados are often refrigerated, which reduces success rates. Don't wait endlessly. Start fresh with a new, plump seed. Second, mold on the seed, especially in the water method, usually comes from infrequent water changes or leftover fruit residue. Remove visible mold gently with a paper towel. Ensure the seed is clean. And refresh the water every 2 to 3 days. Third, brown tips on leaves almost always point to environmental stress. It could be too much direct sun, low humidity, or inconsistent watering. Avocados love humidity, so miss the leaves occasionally, especially during dry winter months. Move the plant to bright indirect light and maintain steady moisture. Fourth, if the stem grows tall and spindly with few leaves, your plant is craving more light. Relocate it to a brighter spot or add a grow light during darker months. Strong light encourages bushier, healthier growth. Fifth, yellowing and dropping leaves, particularly lower ones, often signal overwatering. Let the soil dry out more between waterings and always ensure excellent drainage. Root rot is a common avocado killer, so prevention is key. For my promised bonus tip that can speed up germination even more, try the paper towel pre-sprouting method. Wrap your clean seed in a damp paper towel. Place it in a loosely sealed plastic bag for airflow. And keep it warm. on top of the refrigerator, or on a heat mat. Check every few days and maintain moisture. Within 2 to 4 weeks, you'll often see the seed crack and roots emerge. Once the root is about an inch long, transfer it carefully into soil. This hybrid approach gives you the visibility of water sprouting with the superior long-term results of soil growth. That's everything you need to know to grow an avocado from seed the fastest and most successful way possible. After testing countless methods, I'm confident that starting directly in soil, combined with warmth and proper care, will give you the strongest results. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss future fruit tree growing videos. I'd love to hear about your own avocado journey. Drop a comment below and tell me which method you're going to try first. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ever tried growing an avocado from one of those pits you normally throw away, only to end up with a tall, spindly stick that never produces a single fruit? You are not alone. Most people make a few critical mistakes early on that doom their avocado tree before it ever has a chance. In this video, I am going to walk you through the complete process of growing avocados from pit to productive tree. And I am going to show you how to multiply your plants so you can have as many avocado trees as you want without spending a dime. Plus, stick around to the end, where I will share a little trick that can dramatically increase your chances of actually getting fruit. Let us get started. Avocados are one of the most rewarding trees you can grow at home. Whether you are in a warm climate where they can live outdoors year-round, or growing them as indoor plants in cooler regions. The beautiful thing about avocados is that every single pit you pull out of your next avocado has the potential to become a full-grown tree. And once you understand the techniques I am about to show you, you can turn one pit into dozens of plants over time. It is easier than most people think, and the results are genuinely impressive. Before we dive into the actual growing process, let me give you a quick understanding of what we are working with here. Avocados are subtropical trees native to Mexico and Central America, and they thrive in USDA zones 9 through 11 when grown outdoors. But here's the thing, even if you live in zone 6 or 7, you can absolutely grow avocados in containers and bring them indoors during the winter months. I have been doing this for years, and some of my healthiest trees started as pits from grocery store avocados. Now there are a few things you need to know about avocado trees. First, they can get big. In the ground in a warm climate, an avocado tree can reach 40 to 60 feet tall. But when you grow them in containers and prune them properly, which I will show you how to do, you can keep them at a very manageable 6 to 8 feet. Second, avocados grown from seed are not true to the parent fruit. That Hass-Avocado you just ate? The tree you grow from its pit will produce different fruit, and it could take anywhere from 5 to 13 years to produce anything at all. But do not let that discourage you, because I am going to show you some ways to speed things up and increase your odds. And honestly, even if your tree never fruits, avocado trees make beautiful houseplants with their large, glossy leaves. The other important thing to understand is that avocados are actually quite easy to propagate from cuttings once you have an established plant. This means you can multiply your trees exponentially, just like I'm going to show you later in this video. One pit can eventually become 10, 20, or even more plants if you follow the right techniques. All right, let us start at the very beginning, which is getting that pit to sprout. Now there are a couple of different methods you can use, but I am going to show you the one that has given me the best results over the years. First, you need to start with a good pit. After you eat your avocado, carefully remove the pit and wash off any remaining fruit. You want it completely clean because any leftover avocado flesh can cause mold problems later on. Here is something a lot of people do not realize. The pit has a top and a bottom, and it matters which end goes down. The bottom is the flatter, broader end, and that is where the roots will emerge. The top is the slightly pointier end, and that is where the stem will eventually sprout. If you put it in upside down, you are going to have problems. Now the classic method is the toothpick method, and it works well. You take 3 or 4 toothpicks and insert them into the pit about halfway up, spacing them evenly around the circumference. The toothpick should go in at a slight downward angle, maybe about 45 degrees. Then you suspend the pit over a glass or jar of water so that the bottom inch or so is submerged. The toothpicks rest on the rim of the glass and keep the pit in place. Place this setup in a warm spot that gets bright, indirect light. A sunny windowsill works great, but avoid direct hot sun which can heat up the water too much. You want the water temperature to stay relatively stable. Now here is the key, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. You need to change the water every few days, ideally every 2 to 3 days. If you let the water get stagnant, bacteria and mold can develop and kill your pit before it ever sprouts. I have lost pits to this exact problem, so trust me, stay on top of your water changes. In about 2 to 6 weeks, you should start to see the pit crack open at the bottom. This is exciting because it means a root is emerging. The taproot will grow down into the water first, and it can get quite long, sometimes 6 inches or more. Then, after the root system starts developing, you will see the top of the pit crack open and a stem will begin to emerge. This whole process can take anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks, depending on the temperature and the individual pit. Warmer temperatures speed things up considerably. If your home stays around 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, you will see faster results than if it is down in the low 60s. One thing I want to mention is that not every pit will sprout. I would say my success rate is about 80%, which is pretty good. If you have a pit that has been sitting in water for 10 to 12 weeks with no signs of life, it is probably not going to make it. Just start over with a fresh one. This is why I always recommend starting multiple pits at once. That way, you are almost guaranteed to have at least a few successes. Once your pit has sprouted and you have a nice root system developing along with a stem that is a few inches tall, your job shifts to caring for that seedling while it is still in water. This stage is crucial because the decisions you make now will determine how healthy and strong your plant becomes. The first thing you want to watch is the root development. A healthy avocado seedling in water will develop a robust root system with multiple branching roots. The roots should be white or light tan in color. If you notice roots turning brown or getting slimy, that is a sign of root rot. Usually from water that is not being changed frequently enough or water that is too cold. Keep changing that water every 2 to 3 days and make sure you are using room temperature water, not cold water straight from the tap. As for light, once the stem emerges, you can gradually increase the light exposure. The stem will grow toward the light, so if you are keeping it on a windowsill, rotate the glass every few days so the stem grows straight, rather than leaning heavily to one side. You want at least 6 hours of bright, indirect light at this stage. If you do not have a sunny window, a simple grow light works wonderfully. I keep mine about 12 inches above the seedlings and run it for about 12 to 14 hours a day. Now here is an important step that many people skip, and it makes a huge difference. When your stem reaches about 6 to 7 inches tall, you want to cut it back to about 3 inches. I know, it feels wrong to cut off all that new growth you have been waiting for. But here is why it matters. If you let the stem just keep growing without cutting it back, you end up with a tall, weak, spindly plant with very few leaves. By cutting it back, you force the plant to put energy into developing a stronger root system and a thicker, sturdier stem. When it regrows, it will come back much bushier and healthier. After you cut it back, the stem will regrow, and this time it will often send out multiple shoots instead of just one. This is exactly what you want. Let it grow back up to about 6 to 8 inches again before you think about transplanting to soil. The whole water phase, from pit to ready for soil seedling, typically takes about 3 to 4 months. Yes, it requires patience, but the results are worth it. Now we have reached one of the most important transitions in your avocado's life, moving it from water into soil. This is where a lot of people run into trouble because the roots have become accustomed to growing in water, and suddenly they are in a completely different environment. But if you do it right, your plant will adapt beautifully and really take off. First, let us talk about timing. You want to transplant when your seedling has a healthy root system at least a few inches long with some branching, and a stem that has been cut back and regrown to about 6 to 8 inches with several leaves. If the roots are just a single taproot with no branching yet, give it more time and water. For the container, start with a pot that is about 8 to 10 inches in diameter, with good drainage holes in the bottom. Avocados absolutely hate sitting in waterlogged soil, so drainage is non-negotiable. I cannot stress this enough. More avocado trees die from overwatering than from any other cause. For soil, you want a loose, well-draining potting mix. I use a good quality potting soil mixed with about 20 to 30% perlite to improve drainage and aeration. Some people add a bit of coarse sand as well, and that works too. The key is that when you water, the water should flow through fairly quickly and not sit on the surface for more than a few seconds. When you are ready to plant, fill your pot about 2/3 full with your soil mix. Gently remove the seedling from the water and examine the roots. They will look different from roots that have grown in soil, kind of translucent and delicate. That is normal. Create a hole in the center of the soil deep enough to accommodate the roots, without bending or crowding them. Set the seedling in so that the pit is about half exposed above the soil line. You do not want to bury the pit completely. Gently fill in around the roots with more soil, firming it lightly but not packing it down hard. Give it a good watering right after transplanting, letting the water drain completely out the bottom. Then here is the important part. For the first week or two, keep the soil consistently moist but not soggy. The roots need time to adjust to their new environment, and during this transition period, the plant cannot take up water as efficiently as it will once established. You might notice a little bit of drooping or some leaf drop during this adjustment phase. That is normal and nothing to panic about as long as you are not overwatering. Place your newly potted avocado in bright, indirect light for the first week or so. Avoid putting it in harsh direct sun right away, because the plant is already stressed from the transplant. After it perks up and shows signs of new growth, you can gradually move it to a sunnier spot. With your avocado now happily growing in soil, your focus shifts to providing the ongoing care that will keep it healthy and encourage strong growth. And honestly, avocados are not particularly fussy once they are established, but there are a few key things you need to get right. Let us start with watering, because this is where most people make mistakes. Avocados like to dry out slightly between waterings. Stick your finger about 2 inches into the soil. If it feels dry at that depth, it is time to water. If it still feels moist, wait another day or two. When you do water, water deeply until it runs out the drainage holes, then let it drain completely. Never let your avocado sit in a saucer of water. The frequency will depend on your conditions. In the summer, when it is warm and the plant is actively growing, you might water every 4 to 5 days. In winter, when growth slows down, it might be every 10 days to 2 weeks. The key is to check the soil rather than watering on a fixed schedule. I have found that more avocados are killed by overwatering than underwatering. So when in doubt, wait another day. For light, avocados want as much bright light as you can give them. If you are growing indoors, a south-facing window is ideal. They need at least 6 hours of direct or bright indirect light daily, but more is better. If you notice your avocado getting leggy with long spaces between leaves, that is a sign it needs more light. A grow light can supplement natural light during darker winter months, and I run mine for about 12 to 14 hours a day during the short days of winter. Temperature is another important factor. Avocados are happiest when daytime temperatures are between 60 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. They can handle brief dips down to about 50 degrees, but anything below that and you risk damage. If you are growing outdoors in zones 9 through 11, your tree can stay outside year-round. But if you are in a cooler climate like I am, you will need to bring your avocado inside before the first frost and keep it as a houseplant through winter. Humidity can be a challenge indoors, especially in winter when heating systems dry out the air. Avocados prefer humidity levels around 50% or higher. If your home is dry, you can mist the leaves occasionally, place a tray of pebbles and water beneath the pot, or run a humidifier nearby. Brown leaf tips are often a sign of low humidity. As for fertilizing, avocados are moderate feeders. During the growing season from spring through early fall, feed your tree every 4 to 6 weeks with a balanced fertilizer. I use a fertilizer with equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, something like a 10-10-10 formula. You can also use fertilizers formulated specifically for citrus and avocado trees. In winter, when growth slows, stop fertilizing altogether or reduce to once every couple of months. Overfeeding can cause salt buildup in the soil and burn the roots, so more is definitely not better here. Now let us talk about one of the most important things you can do for your avocado tree, and that is pruning. This is something a lot of people neglect, but proper pruning is the difference between a tall, leggy stick with a few leaves at the top and a beautiful, bushy tree that actually looks like something you would want in your home. Avocados naturally want to grow straight up. They will put all their energy into that central leader, and if you let them, they will just keep reaching for the sky without branching much at all. But if you prune them strategically, you can encourage them to branch out and become much fuller and more attractive plants. And here is the bonus. Every time you prune, you create material that can be used to propagate new plants. The basic principle is simple. Every time your avocado reaches a height you want to control, or when a branch gets too long, you cut it back. When you cut the main stem or a branch, the plant responds by sending out new growth from the nodes below the cut. Nodes are the points on the stem where leaves attach, and they are where new branches can emerge. So instead of one tall stem, you get multiple shorter stems, and the plant becomes bushier. Here's how I approach it. Once my avocado reaches about 12 to 18 inches tall, I cut the main stem back by about half. Yes, it feels drastic, but the plant will thank you. Within a few weeks, you will see new shoots emerging from the nodes below where you cut. Let these new shoots grow out 6 to 8 inches, then pinch or cut them back as well. Each time you do this, the plant branches more, and you end up with a much fuller tree. The best time to do major pruning is in late winter or early spring, just before the plant enters its active growing season. But light pinching and shaping can be done any time during the growing season. Always use clean, sharp pruning shears or scissors to make clean cuts and avoid introducing disease. By the way, if you are finding this helpful so far, take a second to subscribe so you do not miss future videos like this one. Alright, let us keep going. Now here is where things get really exciting. All those cuttings you take when you prune, they can become new plants. This is how you turn one avocado tree into an endless supply without ever buying another plant or starting another pit. Avocado cuttings can be a bit trickier to root than some other plants, but it is absolutely doable with the right technique. Here is what works for me. When you take a cutting, you want a piece that is about 6 to 8 inches long with several leaves. Cut just below a node, because just like with basil and many other plants, this is where the rooting hormones concentrate and where new roots will emerge most readily. Remove the lower leaves, leaving just 2 or 3 leaves at the top. If the remaining leaves are very large, you can cut them in half to reduce moisture loss while the cutting is trying to root. The cutting cannot take up much water without roots, so reducing the leaf surface helps it survive. Now you have 2 options. You can root your cuttings in water, just like you did with the original pit, or you can root them directly in soil. For water rooting, place the cutting in a jar with the bottom 2 inches submerged and change the water every few days. Keep it in bright, indirect light and be patient. Avocado cuttings can take 4 to 6 weeks or even longer to develop roots. For soil rooting, dip the cut end in rooting hormone powder, which you can find at any garden center. This is not strictly necessary, but it significantly improves your success rate with avocados. Then plant the cutting in a small pot filled with a moist mix of perlite and peat moss or a seed starting mix. Cover the pot with a clear plastic bag to maintain humidity, but open it daily for air circulation. Keep the soil moist but not soggy and place it in bright, indirect light. Roots typically develop in 4 to 8 weeks. Once your cuttings have developed a good root system, you can pot them up into regular potting soil and care for them just like your original plant. And then guess what? Once those grow large enough, you can take cuttings from them too. You can see how quickly this multiplies. Starting from 1 pit, within a year or 2, you could easily have a dozen or more avocado trees. Let us talk about some common problems you might encounter and how to solve them. First, brown leaf tips. This is probably the most common issue, and it is usually caused by one of 3 things: low humidity, salt buildup in the soil, from fertilizer or tap water, or inconsistent watering. Increase humidity around your plant. Flush the soil occasionally by watering heavily and letting it drain completely to wash out salts, and try to maintain a consistent watering schedule. Second, yellowing leaves. If the older, lower leaves are turning yellow and dropping, this is often just natural aging and nothing to worry about. But if newer leaves are yellowing, it could indicate overwatering, poor drainage, or nutrient deficiency. Check that your pot has good drainage and that you are not keeping the soil too wet. A dose of balanced fertilizer during the growing season can help if nutrients are the issue. Third, drooping leaves. This usually means your plant is either too dry or too wet. Check the soil. If it is bone dry, water thoroughly. If it is soggy, you have been overwatering and you need to let it dry out and possibly repot into fresh, well-draining soil. Fourth, no new growth. If your avocado seems stuck and is not putting out new leaves, it might need more light, warmer temperatures, or a feeding. Avocados can also go somewhat dormant in winter, so slow growth during the cold months is normal. Fifth, pests. Avocados can occasionally attract spider mites, scale, or mealybugs, especially when grown indoors. Inspect your plant regularly, particularly the undersides of leaves. If you spot pests, wipe the leaves with a damp cloth or treat with insecticidal soap or neem oil. The good news is that avocados are generally pretty resilient. If you catch problems early and correct the underlying issue, your plant will usually bounce back just fine. Now the question everyone wants to know: will your tree actually produce avocados? The honest answer is maybe, and it depends on several factors. Trees grown from seed can take 5 to 13 years or even longer to produce fruit, and some never do. That might sound discouraging, but there are some things you can do to improve your odds. First, give your tree the best possible growing conditions: maximum light, proper watering, regular feeding, and protection from cold. A stressed tree is much less likely to fruit. Second, understand that avocados have an unusual flowering pattern. Each flower opens twice. Once as female and once as male, at different times. For successful pollination, you ideally need 2 trees of different flowering types called type A and type B. If you are growing indoors with a single tree, you can try hand pollinating by transferring pollen with a small brush when the flowers are open. Third, consider grafting. If you get serious about wanting fruit, you can graft a branch from a known fruiting variety onto your seedling rootstock. This is more advanced, but it allows you to get fruit much sooner and know exactly what variety you will get. Fourth, if you live in a suitable climate and have outdoor space, planting your tree in the ground once it is large enough will give it the best chance of eventually fruiting. Container-grown trees can fruit, but it is less common. Now for that bonus tip I promised you at the beginning. If you want to dramatically increase your chances of success when rooting avocado cuttings, try this technique. Take your cutting as I described earlier, but before you put it in water or soil, wrap the cut end in a damp paper towel. Then wrap that in plastic wrap to hold in the moisture. Place this wrapped cutting in a warm, dark place for about 7 to 10 days. What this does is encourage the cells at the cut end to begin forming callus tissue, which is the precursor to root development. After the callusing period, unwrap the cutting and you should see a whitish, slightly swollen area at the base. Now place it in water or plant it in your rooting medium. I have found this callusing step increases my rooting success rate significantly, from maybe 50% to closer to 75 or 80%. It takes a little extra time, but when you are working with avocado cuttings that can be finicky, every advantage helps. This is something commercial growers do, and once I started doing it myself, my results improved dramatically. Give it a try with your next batch of cuttings and see the difference for yourself. So that is everything you need to know to grow an endless supply of avocados from a single pit. We covered sprouting, water care, transplanting, ongoing maintenance, pruning and propagating cuttings to multiply your plants. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you tried growing avocados? What has your experience been?